Hello everyone, Simon here with a review of 428 Shibuya Scramble. This visual novel is available for PlayStation 4, which is the version you see on your screen, but that was a port of the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Portable version that came out in 2008. It's also been ported to Android, iOS, Windows, and was also on the Nintendo Wii. My journey of this game started back in 2011 when I thought, yes, I'll be able to import Japanese games that will never make it over here, and I'll be able to understand them. And this was one of the ones that I did. And when it opened, I was like, I don't understand a word. So I held up my phone with Google Translate and was trying to get through the story. I didn't get very far. It was a terrible idea. So I'm really delighted that this came over for an English release finally 10 years after its initial release. Because this is, quite frankly, one of the best visual novels that has ever been produced. Spike Chunsoft are notorious in the visual novel field, but they took a really interesting approach with this, and they've done it with a couple of their games where they set up all of the environment so that it's not hand-drawn and it's not computer animated. It's real photography with real actors, and they set out the scenes on a stage and really act out everything. So even though you're only seeing photos, there's 10,000 photos, for example, and you can it just chops up the story beautifully, and there doesn't seem to be expense spared. It's real high level production value. There are some FMV style moments where actually you've got like people running down a street very briefly and things like that. It just elevates everything beautifully, and the production level, even 10 years later, is ambitious. It feels still at the top of its trade. The only thing that kind of shows off its age slightly is that the text is quite large, and that's about it, really. The way how the game works is that you have 5/6 different character arcs that are going on, and it all centres around a kidnapping, some chemical warfare, terrorist activity, and someone trapped in a cat suit. And by that I don't mean leotard, I mean an actual cat suit, like a mascot. And these 5/6 different characters you play in an hour by hour basis over the course of a day, where all of these different events occur. You'll be reading through one person's scenario, and you'll have decisions to make, and that decision may end up either bringing up a bad ending for that character, which therefore finishes off their story and therefore gives a game over, and you'll have to redo that and choose other options. Or it could be that one option then affects or blocks the path of someone else's story, and even though they might not necessarily all cross paths and interlink, what you're doing in one story will affect the other, and it's really clever the way how the web of change kind of goes out as it goes along. There is only really one true ending, and if you're careful enough with all of the back and forths and the A, B's and C's choosing that you get, eventually you'll uncover about 60 odd bad endings on your way to the proper true ending at the end, and it'll make you work for it, because this is quite a long not elongated story, because I was very much amused throughout all of it, but it will take you a good chunk of 20 odd hours to get all the way through to the end, and that's without having to faff around too much with picking A, B and C and going for all of the endings afterwards. But what is great, I was saying about no expense spared, is that even if you're going down really small little bad ending routes, there's individual pictures for it that actually show it all the way to its conclusion. Sometimes you've got an extra 5 minutes of stuff, and then you'll still get a bad ending, but you feel like you've learnt something as you go along. And that's just so rare for the amount of effort being put into this game, because it's so sprawling and intricate in the way how it's put together. That's why it's such a joy to play. There is one other game mechanic as well that you can do, and that's when you hit kind of a keep out moment, you can press on different keywords that will let you flip from one character to another, which lets you then progress their timeline as you go along, and you'll be doing a lot more of that as you go through the game. So you'll be hitting perceived dead ends, going through all of the extra detail that's in the story, where it's explaining certain words or slang, and then that will hint a keyword for you to then flip to someone else. Sometimes you might want to do that straight away, other times you might want to complete someone else's route as far as you can go and then backtrack and go through. It's about how completionist you want to be, and if you're a completionist, 428 Shibuya Scramble is a visual novel for you because it will keep you going for ages and you'll always be learning more information. The game is quite serious for some stroke of the game, but some of the characters are there purely for comic relief, and I really like the way how it balances everything out. I was quite happy for some of the comic relief sections of it, and there's some really great photos in there that made me giggle and laugh throughout. And it's one of those games that really does balance like the perils of everything versus the comic relief. And even though the comic relief characters are affecting stuff that's going on for the like serious main storyline, it would feel incomplete if they weren't all there. So yeah, 428 Shibuya Scramble, a lot of people kind of go, oh, it's a visual novel that's really, really great. But yeah, sit down, enjoy your time with it. You need to focus to keep yourself on with the story, otherwise you will lose yourself, and it demands your attention and time. But that's because it's a really lavishly put together production, and I really hope that Spike Chunsoft try this type of game again in the future in the way how it's laid out, the production values and so on and so forth. They've done it a couple of times in the past, but apparently they've been some of the least lucrative games that they've produced. So fingers crossed that we all give them enough support and love for when they do this properly again in the future. So, any comments or questions, leave it down below. I'd love to know how you got on with the game. And yeah, it's out on all those devices, so I'm sure you'll find one to pick it up. Visual novels, this is one of the best examples of them. Take care, bye-bye. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a collection of media projects ran by me. If you like what you see and want to find out more, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support can make so much more possible, be that a like, a comment, a share, or a pledge. Thanks for watching.